Right, State, are you in objection?
Yes, Judge, we're opposed to the early termination.
All right, defense, you may proceed.
Yes, Judge, we presented this motion at the time that Mr. Barnett had taken this plea. We'd gone through several trial dockets, and he had been on a SCRAM monitor and ignition interlock for several years prior to us ever getting the case resolved, and he had no violations of any kind and had always abided by the court's order. At any time he wanted to seek modification of those conditions, he always presented himself timely and dressed properly for this court. Now, I know that doesn't weigh into whether or not to terminate a case early, but I just wanted the court to know that he's, beyond him being on this current supervision, he was under the strictest of bond conditions prior to. He also completed outpatient treatment, met with psychologists, psychiatrists, completed every condition of probation ahead of time. When I met with probation officer Cynthia Perez, who's on this call with us, he is a perfect probationer at this time. He's had no violations. The reason we started to pursue this was, and we know it's not necessarily at the half mark yet, but restitution has been completed by all the insurance companies involved. There's no restitution owed. There's no outstanding debts owed to society beyond him just reporting monthly. I know probation on its own was considering doing a motion to amend probation just on its own merit to change him from the monthly, and Cynthia, maybe you could help me out. The check-ins at the house, what are those called?
For the field visits?
Yeah, so they were about to discontinue the field visits, not seeing that those were necessary anymore, which would just leave him on just checking in monthly and on ignition interlock. So Mr. Barnett consulted with us because since he took this plea, it's affected his ability to maintain gainful employment in the field he was in. He was in medical pharmaceutical sales. Obviously, traveling with ignition interlock, he can't do interstate travel because when he travels out of state and needs to take clients out, he can't rent a car without a vehicle with ignition interlock in it. Also, as he is trying to apply for new positions in this field or try to do lateral movements, what is coming up is the fact that he's presently on probation, and that he has been told that unless this is discharged, he can't pursue these things that would advance his career. And so, and I told him, that this is totally discretionary to the court. I assume the state would oppose it, but I told him it's, Wayne Gretzky says you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And we wanted to put it in front of the court. And then alternatively, Your Honor, if he was to be denied, I advised him that he could always pursue this again in the future. And we would ask the court at that point for some other modifications of his current probation, Your Honor.
Okay, and I see that this was originally an intoxication assault, and he entered a plea to count 3 and count 4.
That's correct, yeah.
State?
Your Honor, I think that really the state's position is this is not even at the halfway mark at this particular point. And on top of that, the ignition interlock is supposed to be imposed until, I believe, 2024. Mm-hmm. So the state's position is that we haven't made it even the halfway mark. I know this is not considered a 3G because it was a plea to count 3 and 4, which was an ag assault, SBI. But if this was an intox assault, to be considered that, and it would not be eligible for early termination, at least until the halfway mark. So I believe this is sort of a little early in the game to be asking for an early termination of his probation at this point, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor, may I add just one more thing? Mr. Barnett has been laid off. He is looking for a job. It's not just that it affects his ability to go enhance his career. He needs to go find a job, and therefore, that's really what prompted this. Is this need to find a job?
Okay. So, what is precluding him from finding a job?
I'll let Blake answer that.
So when he's applied, Your Honor, just for the things I've stated before, when he has applied, and he shared these things with the probation department as well, but he, when he applies and they do a background check, it's not that he has this on his record that's precluding him. It's the fact that he's actively on probation, and that he has to travel domestically interstate for bulk of his work and internationally in the medical and pharmaceutical sales business. He was doing quite well up until this tragedy, this tragic case, and which he did accept his portion of responsibility for. I don't know if Your Honor remembered the facts of this case.
Yes.
Okay, and so that's that he's being told by them exactly what's going on, and the fact that he is going to be obligated and was in his prior role taking CEO, Alphabet officers out for the schmoozing, the dinners and the meetings, and he can't rent a car to go pick up the clients at this point because it requires him to have ignition interlock everywhere he goes. So it's both the background, them running his background and seeing he's actively on felony probation or deferred, and coupled with the fact that he is restricted in his ability to rent vehicles that are without ignition interlock.
All right, Mr. Barnett, I want you to realize that I'm internalizing everything that is being said to me.
Yes, ma'am.
But there are always consequences for actions, right? And the complainant in this case had a fractured pelvis.
Yes, ma'am.
Complainant's life is never going to be the same. Your life is never going to be the same because you're on probation. And with probation, there comes difficulties. And sometimes based upon what you're on probation for, that means that you can no longer work in the field that you were previously in. So I understand that you don't have employment. I understand that you can't get employment in the field that you were previously in. I understand that may mean that you're not making the money that you're used to making, but those are called consequences. So I always tell people you got to knock your pride aside and work wherever there's employment. If you have a savings, then if you want to deplete your savings, eventually you'll probably have to get a job. I think the cryptocurrency thing is done for. So you're just going to have to get another job. And guess what? I always tell people, even if that job is working as a fry cook, guess what? In this world, there needs to be a fry cook. In this world, there needs to be somebody to dig ditches. In this world, there needs to be somebody to bring crops in, and there's no shame in doing it. My mom was this close to working on a garbage truck because she had to support her children. And that was back in the day where you actually rode on the back of the truck, you got off the truck and you picked up the garbage cans. And that was back in the day when people did not use trash bags. So if you can imagine it, and you know why she was going to do that? Because she needed to support her children and she was knocking her pride aside, because I don't know anyone who wanted to do that, but she was going to do that. And then she got called for another job, but she was willing to do that. So sometimes we have to do what we don't want to do, and there are consequences. So your consequence is, this is where you are. I'm going to deny the motion. And I always talk to people because I want them to know that I have listened to everything, and it's not just pro forma for me that I'm automatically going to deny something or not. But come back and have the term and I'll reconsider. We'll see where we are.
Your Honor, with you denying the motion, Your Honor, can I just an oral motion to do what probation was asking, which was to amend probation conditions to stop the community home visits that are monthly? That was something she was going to raise and ask me to piggyback that.
Right. I will tell you, I'm going to continue with those home visits until he gets employment. Once he has employment, then the court will consider eliminating the field visits.
And then, Judge, just creatively knowing that the early termination has been denied, and he's going to continue to be on deferred. And as Jason pointed out, there's no requirement he has to remain on ignition interlock. And Your Honor, he has not had a violation in 5 years of monitoring. And he had the most restrictive conditions while we were on bond waiting for trial. He was on scram monitor for 2 years. He doesn't drink. He has completely changed the way he approached life. He's done everything the court would ask to protect society. May we amend the bond or the probation condition related to monitoring his vehicles?
I'm not willing to do that at this stage.
Okay.
Right.
And the other thing we were contemplating was, can we switch him to report by mail or pro forma? Since right now all he does is check in.
No,
So still monthly in-person visits?
yes.
All right, Your Honor. Thank you for taking. Oh,
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I think he wants to speak with his attorney. Just 1 second. The attorney, I should say the attorney that's in court.
yeah, thank you, Judge, for doing it this way. I'm actually picking a jury in an hour, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
You know, Mr. Barnett has come several times to ask for permission to travel out of state in order to look for jobs. And when he worked, traveled to work. Can we lift the state injunction to go travel out of state for work?
He needs to, 1, a motion will need to be filed. 2, he'd need to provide proof of that to the court. Then the court will consider that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. You're welcome.
Thank you all. Nice seeing you.
All right. Thank you. Good luck with your trial.
All right, thank you.
3 CR 2668, State of Texas versus James Errol Bradley. Can I have parties announced for the record for the state?
For the state.
Defense?
John Pettis for defense.
All right. And are you Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Counsel, have you received all the discovery and did you review it with your client? Court will find that the state is in compliance with discovery. Mr. Bradley, I'm showing you what's entitled True Bill of Indictment. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it?
Yes, ma'am.
Counsel, do you waive the reading of the indictment?
We do, Judge.
State, are you proceeding on the indictment as presented?
We're proceeding on the lesser included charge of assault, bodily injury, family, household.
Any objection?
No objections, Judge.
Showing you what's entitled Court Admonishments and Defendant's Waivers and Affidavit of Admonitions. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? Did you sign it in all the appropriate places?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you understand the state is proceeding on the lesser included offense of assault, bodily injury, family, household?
Yes, ma'am.
That is a Class A misdemeanor. The range of punishment, if you all can initial here.
Yes.
The range of punishment is anywhere up to 1 year in the Bexar County Jail and up to a $4,000 fine. Did you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Guilty, and the court will find you guilty. Are we proceeding with sentencing?
Yes, Judge.
All right. State, was the complainant informed of this offer?
Your Honor, this complainant previously tendered an A&P to our office, and in subsequent attempts to contact her, she's been unresponsive and the state's been unsuccessful in making contact with her.
All right. Anything you want to say on behalf of your client?
Judge, I would just like to say that my client has been in custody and has learned from his mistakes. He will never be before you again.
All right. What have you learned?
I have learned that small things can lead up to this specific thing right here, and I learned my lesson, and it won't happen again.
Yeah, but have you learned your lesson that you're not supposed to put your hands on anybody?
Yes, ma'am.
And the witness in this case, the juvenile, Damani, is that a female or a male?
That's me.
All right. And how old is Damani?
8.
Right. And is that your son?
Stepson.
All right. So he's a witness to that. You know what that means?
Yes, ma'am.
That means that he was traumatized on that day.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have employment?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do?
Cook at Sonic.
Okay. I don't think adults sometimes realize what they put children through. So this child saw you attacking his mother. So 1 or 2 things he's going to learn from that. 1, he is learning that if you love somebody, you hit them. Or 2, he's learning that right makes right. And what he's going to end up doing, if he's in a relationship and he learns this is how you show love, or either this is how you get your way, then that's what he will be doing. And he will be taking that into his school years. Do you have any children with her, biological children?
No, ma'am.
All right. This is what the court is going to do. Court is finding you guilty. There's an affirmative finding of family violence, a $300 fine, time and money will run concurrent, 50 days in the Bexar County Jail, give you credit for any time served. There's to be no contact with Semaj, S-E-M-A-J Johns, and Damani, D-I-M-A-N-I Hunter. So what that means is you're not to have any contact with them. Your relationship with them is over. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
They deserve better.
Yes, ma'am.
And she is not reaching out to the state. She wants to do an affidavit of non-prosecution. So maybe she wants to get back with you. Maybe she wants to tolerate this, but you're not allowed to have contact with them. So you're going to have to move on to somebody else. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
If you have contact with them, it's going to show up in the system if the police are ever called and there's going to be an issue. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you what's entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it?
Yes, ma'am.
Because this is a plea bargain agreement, because this is an affirmative fighting of family violence, you're not allowed to own or possess any weapons or ammunition. If you have a question over what a weapon or ammunition is, you need to speak to an attorney. And because this is a plea bargain agreement, I follow your plea bargain agreement and you waived your right to appeal. You do not have the court's permission to appeal. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we can go off the record. I mean this in hopefully the most helpful ways for you. And I don't take domestic violence lightly, but if you want to be in a relationship and if you think you will be good in a relationship, you know what you should do?
Yes, ma'am.
Go to one of these stores. They have orchids on sale. Those orchids are probably about $12. They have the blooms over on them. They look beautiful. Keep that orchid until those blooms fall off. And if that orchid blooms again, you may be ready for a relationship. And let me just tell you why I say that. I say that because orchids are a little bit fickle. You have all the people online saying, put 3 ice cubes in them. Then somebody says, well, that doesn't work. They like the light, put them next to a light. Then the light doesn't work. I have had no less than 6 orchids. None of them have survived. So now we have 2 more in the back. We shall see if they will survive. And I say that because orchids, when you get them to bloom, that teaches you patience. Because you look at it and you think it's dead and you want to throw it away. But if you work with it and when it reblooms, you're very happy because you have worked towards making that bloom. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Do better.
Yes, ma'am.